Welcome to another episode of the crazy world of cyber compliance, threats, attacks, oh my. Cyber criminals beware, there's a new bird in town taking a BYTE out of you. Every episode, your host Michele Novack breaks down the latest cyber threats, attacks, and compliance shakeups happening right now. From ransomware to phishing schemes, we keep it real, keep it current, and yes, we keep it fun. So buckle up, because in this world, the Cardinal always wins.
Welcome back to the crazy world of cyber compliance. I'm Michele Novack, where we talk about compliance that matters, but yet boring. So if you think cyber compliance is just a checklist of boring rules designed to keep IT busy once a year, think again. All right? We all know the landscape is shifting daily. Today's compliance isn't just an administrative hurdle, it's an actively being weaponized. And that's where we step in, right? In our last episode, we talked a lot about why your business might really need a different perspective and how you handle your cybersecurity for your internal and external customers. And yes, I said that, your internal and your external customers, right? Why right now you might even be in violation of the federal laws like IRS 4557 or the FTC Safeguards rules. Today, we're moving past those rules and we're looking at the raw data of how these rules are being weaponized today and right now. In this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on how regulators, cyber insurance providers, and class action attorneys are no longer just looking for good faith efforts. Instead, they're actively hunting for compliance gaps to deny insurance payouts, levy devastating fines, and freeze corporate revenue overnight. And I said that, and it's true. We're seeing the shift. We're seeing a massive shift in how regulators and all of these entities are targeting small and mid-sized market companies. The game has changed. Compliance is no longer a paperwork issue you handle once a year, right? Everybody thinks it's a set it and forget it. You know, once a year you have to review your policies and you have to update them and you have to have somebody review them and update the version and sign off and put together the procedures that back it up. But is that really happening? The game has changed. Compliance is no longer, again, a once a year thing. It's an operational live risk. And that's the way, as a business leader, you need to look at it. Right, we're going to unpack today the recent structural failures, the sudden surge in enforcement, and how a single oversight can freeze your revenue overnight. Let's talk about the trap. Large enterprises forcing compliance down onto mid-sized markets and small businesses. You might think I'm a mid-market or small operator. The government's too busy to audit me, but the audit isn't coming from the government first. It's coming from your biggest client. The reality is enterprise corporations and major health networks are now legally obligated to vet their entire vendor supply chain. And so are you. They're sending out massive, complex cybersecurity questionnaires to all of their partners. So what does that mean for you? Well, today I'm going to be teaching a class about third-party vendor management and how to take that assessment and the things you need to gather as a small business. But you also need to be prepared that you might be asked for this information as well. Businesses are blindly checking yes on these questionnaires just to close the deal without actually having controls in place. And that's the risk here, right? You may say, hey, I think we're doing this. Let me check it off, right? If you check yes to secure a contract and then experience a breach, you haven't just had a cyber incident, you've committed breach of contract and corporate fraud. I want you to think about that. So if you're not answering those questions, those vendor risk assessment questions, honestly, or you're not really sure what you're answering, or you don't have those processes or protocols in place, you you've committed a breach of contract and corporate fraud. We're seeing multi-million-dollar contracts canceled in 24 hours because vendors cannot provide audit-ready proof when demanded. And that, again, is something that you have control of as a business owner. You know, the IRS, the FTC, any regulators today have moved not only from the paperwork stance, but to true governance. True governance is when you're taking active approach in monitoring, watching, updating, actively living what you put on paper. That's true governance. I don't see that happen often. When I go into a client and I ask them, show me this, show me that, tell me how you do things. Because I ask first, tell me, walk me through your process as an auditor. And when they tell me their process and I look at the paperwork that they have and it doesn't match up, either they haven't looked at that paperwork or they have no idea what their process really is. So, again, it's not a set it and forget it. And you can't rely on your MSP illusions. You can't rely on your third-party IT guy to take care of things. You have to verify. As a business owner, we're responsible and we're accountable. The IRS doesn't care about who's doing the work. They're going to come after you as that owner. And so will the FTC. So the misconception I get a lot is I pay a local managed service provider or MSSP a few $1,000s a month to manage our computers. They handle my compliance, right? Yeah, no. The unfiltered truth is no, they don't. IT operations and GRC, governing risk and compliance, are two completely different disciplines. Your IT team configures your networks. They do not write your regulatory policies, track your immutable audit defenses, or sign off on your legal liabilities. Only your compliance team does that. The real world fail here is when a regulator asks for an active risk register or a verified WISP under IRS 455 Centing, pointing at your IT guy and saying he handles our firewall is a quick way to trigger an automatic failure penalty. I'm telling you that right now. You are treating a legal framework issue with a purely technical band-aid, and that's not good. And that's why I do these segments, right? I do these segments to teach you, to educate you. For whatever you take out of it, I think it's important. But it's important that you understand the risks that are involved, right? The threat, unmonitored shadow AI, let's talk about that. What does that mean? The reality, the latest failure point isn't sophisticated hackers bypassing your firewall. It's corporate insiders using unauthorized tools to optimize their workflows. So what do I mean by that? So maybe you have an employee who has to convert a Word doc to PDF. Great, they're gonna maybe download something, you have no idea what's going on. And they convert that because they need it. They need it for their client. They need to sign something. They don't know how else to do it. So great, now they've used this tool. But do you know that these third-party tools are now tracking actively that data that's been downloaded without your permission, without you vetting them, and that's where the problem comes in. The failure mode is when employees are plugging in corporate proprietary code or proprietary tax strategies or documents and private client health information into an external large language model or LLM to speed up administrative work. And what I mean by LLM, we're talking, yes, about our beautiful AI tools that they just had a whole exposure on about 7 of them getting exposed and being hacked. And I'm talking ChatGPT, your wonderful Claude, all of these beautiful tools that we're using today. It's important that you understand how they're protecting, how they're using your information, because again, it's not just about compliance. It's validating your vendors, what they're doing with that information. And that's what it's all about. The compliance leak is because the business lacks active continuous visibility or a defined AI governance policy. That's why this will result in an immediate data leak violation under the FTC and HIPAA frameworks. You cannot govern what you don't map, right? I teach everybody, you have to map your entire environment. That doesn't only mean understanding what router and switches you have, but it means mapping where all of your data is flowing through. Where could it possibly leak? Where is it stored? Is it stored in the application? Is it stored in the cloud? Is it on your physical desktop? You have to track all that. At Cardinals, we solve that current crisis. We try to solve it every day, right? We work with our clients to make them understand that the landscape is shifting too fast from manual spreadsheets. You need to move away from manual spreadsheets. If you're still doing manual spreadsheets to track your work or using any other kind of tool to track your work that's not data analytic or automated, you're failing. You can't rely on annual check-ins anymore. This is why we engineered CardinalsByte to operate as live, automated ecosystem. We automate the mapping. Our GRC platform scans your live IT environment and instantly maps against the evolving compliance criteria. No more guesswork. You can't take that risk. You need to be in compliance. And the biggest risk that you have right now is your third-party vendors or your third-party applications, because you don't know what they're doing to protect your data, especially if you're using any kind of software for preparing taxes or whatever it might be, right? When we talk a lot, this is a big shift this year. It's on everybody's mind, especially the FTC with their new mandate. Vet your vendors. We're going to provide independent compliance layers that work alongside your existing IT stack, giving you business executive-grade compliance and validation. We're going to give you the immutable instant evidence. When an enterprise client or a regulator demands to see your compliance posture, you don't just scramble. I've been on the reverse side of an auditor asking for things within large corporations. And I see the scramble because we all know the audit's coming. We get the heads up, but everybody waits for the last minute. There's no process in place for gathering that information, storing it in an isolated location, and having it ready and willingly giving it to an auditor. If an auditor says, I want to see 6 months of your data collection on X, Y, and Z, how do you get it? Where do you go? You need to know that, especially if you're a small business with 1 to 50 employees. If you don't have that process in place, or you're not tracking it, or your IT person you think is tracking it is not doing it, then you need to get somebody or a partner that is. Don't let an enterprise vendor questionnaire catch you off guard. Again, a lot of vendors now, before they'll bring you on as a partner, you need to do the questionnaire. They also might require your SOC 2. Type 2 or type 1, just depending on the vendor, and that validates things. They might ask for a DPA, that's your privacy policy, how you're protecting, right? They might also want to ask for your SLA. How fast do you report to them if there's a breach? These are things that are important. Don't stop doing your work. Be prepared for it. Proactive is always the best sense. Stop assuming your standard IT, MSP, or third-party vendor is covering you and covers your legal regulatory duties. I see this all the time. The world of compliance is moving fast, and the failures we're seeing are entirely preventable. Do what you need to do. Protect your valuation, protect your contracts, and secure your business, right? And that's what this segment's all about. The world of compliance, again, is changing. If you're a CPA, a tax professional, it doesn't matter what size organization you are. The IRS, the FTC, they view you the same way. Vendor risk management is critical today. So if you got anything out of this segment, make sure that you're vetting your vendors. You have a process in place, and continue on. So with that said, thanks for watching this episode of the crazy world of cyber compliance today. Stay alert, stay automated, and see you next time.